Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking a look at two of Luna Snow's best friends, the Crescent and Whitefox new uniform first looks. Again, this is all being tested on the APK test server, not my actual account, so results may vary, and of course numbers and stats and buffs are not finalized, but hopefully my feedback will be taken into consideration by Netmarble, and of course this is made in conjunction with the Netmarble Star Agent program, so thanks for that. Now, when it comes to both Crescent and Whitefox, there's two things to keep in mind for these characters. One, they're both more difficult to get biometrics for, therefore they are semi-premium in the case of Whitefox, or very premium in the case of Crescent. So generally speaking, players have rightfully, come to expect that these types of uniforms, when they're introduced, or these uniforms for these types of characters, they will be quite good. We don't want the character to become overpowered, but they should be well worth the cost, because you're either going to need to purchase the uniform and purchase a bio subscription, or you're going to need to purchase the uniform and purchase or somehow get a Mega Mythic uniform upgrade ticket. So it's very, very difficult to rank up Crescent's uniform. Whitefox's is quite a bit more simple. You just have to go through the heroic quest 2 times to get the full number of bios that you would need to rank up her uniform. Possibly, you might need more than 2, depending on if you have any leftover bios. I don't know if it costs 600 or 900 bios to get this 1-2 mythic, and then you might actually need. It looks like it's 900. You might actually need to do 3 heroic quests if you have 0 biometrics, because 2 heroic quests would give you 880, or 2 heroic quests and a ticket, of varying quality, whether it's rare or advanced or whatever, or possibly just 1 heroic quest if you have like a mythic ticket, for example. But because they are more premium, you are expecting more out of them. That's just the way that it goes. So with that in mind, let's also consider the second thing, which is that both of these characters are getting their first uniform. So a first uniform is also important because you're kind of setting the tone for where you want to put the character on the list of basically all characters. So taking a look at Whitefox, first of all, she is primarily a support character with some self-value. She does have some value as a standalone character. She also buffs herself with her Kumiho stance passive, so you do take that into consideration. Now her uniform effect is good because it gives additional buffs for characters that you were using her with. It doesn't apply to all allies, but allies with leadership as usual, and it'll give them fear immunity, which is pretty irrelevant for most game modes right now, but it could be more relevant in the future, and it gives a 15% all attack bonus. That's pretty good, but I don't think you should purchase this uniform for the uniform effect. 15% all attack is nice. It's half of a leadership, a general 30% leadership, but really I think you should purchase this uniform if you play with Whitefox, like literally play as her. Because as you'll see, they changed 2 of her skills, 1 and 3. They made them not only beautiful in terms of the visuals, but they also made them very strong skills. Like, they added a lot of effects that make them good skills, and they're both iframes. So she went from 2 skills, 1 and 3, that are completely worthless, and we'll go quickly into the skill preview so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Her 1 and 3, and we'll do a little bit of gameplay as well, but her 1 and 3, like, look at this, garbage skill, just like the worst kind of skill, long animation, no iframe. Her 3 is nice because you can instant cancel it into other skills, and it helps you proc her obelisks or CTP, so that was nice, but the damage was low. But basically you do like 3-5 or something like that, and it's just like a nice visual with all these foxes running around. It's nice. But if you want to talk about nice visuals, prepare to be amazed. Look at her new first skill. Boom. Beautiful little heart pops out, some pink, little dash there. This is really nice. You've got a slightly delayed iframe, but you've also got half a second of paralysis, which applies to world bosses. So this is really nice. And I believe it also has Entice, which applies for 3 seconds. So she basically has a 3.5 second world boss disruption ability. So you can call that 3.5 seconds of charm or mind control. That's really strong, especially when you combine that with the 5 seconds of charm that she has on her 5th skill right there. So, you're right there. So you have 8.5 seconds of world boss disruption on, one character. And then check out her new 3rd skill. Instant iframe, transforms, yup, and then boom, down. That is one of the most beautiful looking skills in the game. If you're fans of Naruto, if you're fans of Pokemon, if you're fans of good hunting from Love, Death, and Robots, you're gonna love this skill. It's just absolutely beautiful, and it's functional because it also gives her a pretty nice self buff that I can't put my finger on. So yeah, paralysis and entice on one skill with an iframe, and then you've got self buffs and an iframe and a beautiful skill on 3. She's got a 20% all attack, 35% all defense for 8 seconds with that skill. Honestly, because that's a full iframe, and because she now has iframes on 3 of her skills, she has it on 1, 3, and 5, there's a possibility that Whitefox could be good for PvP. Now, she doesn't have damage reduction against villains, which means she's still pretty squishy, but because she deals so much damage to villains, 60% increase, she could be a sleeper for some PvP action with this new uniform. So I just want to point that out. I'm pretty happy with that uniform, but again, I think it's for people who play as Whitefox, not for the support buffs, just because, you know, the cost. I mean, if you just get the uniform and you never rank it up, you never build it up to Mythic, sure, maybe for 1,000 crystals you want a 15% attack leadership. It's really not that bad. That's basically what her uniform option is. As far as Crescent goes, Crescent is the more premium character than Whitefox, so we're expecting even more. Additionally, Crescent is an original character, so she is being compared to Luna Snow and Sharon Rogers. She does not match up to their value with her base look, her modern look. Sorry, Danny, Ku, it just doesn't work. Now, as far as, she just doesn't have enough strength. As far as her uniform goes, again, there's a lot of pressure for her new uniform to deliver because her first uniform, she's an original character, she's way behind Luna and Sharon, and she's a combat type, and we need stronger combat types, dang it. So her uniform effect gives her a 30% crit rate for 4 seconds, basically with an 85% chance when attacking. I think it's pretty unnecessary to do something like this and make the bonus active. If there's an 85% chance, it's very, very likely, and if it's for 4 seconds with a 4-second cooldown, it can constantly re-trigger. So why not just make it a passive 20% crit rate bonus? Or 25 or 30. It really doesn't make a difference, but this way it's just more confusing and there's more RNG involved. I don't really understand why they still do these kinds of activation rate type abilities when they're offensive. When they're defensive, I can understand, but when they're offensive, I really cannot understand. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing, but 30% crit rate is a huge chunk. And that'll help out her damage quite a bit. As far as her skill changes, she has 4 skill changes. Now, from what I've seen, I have 2 things to say about the skill changes. On the one hand, the skill changes are good because they added 3 iframes. She had 0 iframes before this with her base look. So with her new look, they added a full instant iframe on 5 and 3, which is really good. And they also took away the charge effect. There used to be a charge effect on Crescent's 5th skill, which was garbage, and you basically had to charge it up to get all of the effects, like Hyperion's 5th skill, and it was just a big effing waste of time. So they got rid of that, and they added iframes. They also added a partial iframe on her 1st skill. The other thing that they did well is that they reduced the cooldown on her 3rd and 5th skills by 1 second. So skills that have long animations, like 3 and 5, with iframes and low cooldowns, because it's 14 seconds for her 5th skill here, and then it's 9 seconds here, those are really good, because that means in PvE, you might be able to do 5, 3, 5, and just kind of cycle between those skills if there's enough time in between the animations for you to get the next skill off cooldown. However, so those are the good things about these skills. The bad things about these skills is that they did a lot of sort of effect and buff shuffling. And this is something that I've noticed the Netmarble devs have started to do with characters like Human Torch, characters like Invisible Woman, with the Fantastic Four Future Foundation uniforms, and I was very disappointed to see that. It doesn't take a genius detective to look at the skills before and after, write down the effects, and realize that you're just moving one effect from one skill to another and calling that a skill change. Now, I can't speak to the damage numbers of the skills, so I'm not talking about the damage, but it's fairly obvious when you do something like you take the fracture off of her 4th skill and you move it onto her 3rd skill. You're not giving her new fracture, you're just moving it from one skill to another. You took the 20% heal, it's a 10% heal over 2 seconds, you took that from her 5th skill and you moved it over to her 4th skill. These are not changes, you're just moving the buffs around. It doesn't really matter which skill has the buff, especially if the skills have identical cooldowns. This is a 14-second cooldown, this is a 13-second cooldown. That's not changing skills, Netmarble. You gotta realize that we're gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure this out. And you know, it's just not gonna cut it. Additionally, they added some buffs to her 5th skill. They also improved some of the buffs. They improved the penetration chance from 80% to 85%, and they also improved the 25% all attack to now include 5% all speed and 25% crit rate. So between her 5th skill and her uniform, she's getting 55% crit rate and 30% crit damage from one ability. That's a lot of buffs. It also means that she's actually a very good candidate for a CTP of Rage, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what's weird is they took away one of her best buffs. They took away, well, not best, but okay. They took away her 10% ignore defense buff on her 5th skill, which allowed you to build her with basically just 40% ignore defense because it was an 8-second buff that you could have up all the time, kind of like Captain America. And then the second thing that they did is they reduced the ignore dodge, the 100% ignore dodge buff. They reduced it from 8 seconds to 4 seconds. I'm not really sure why these things are happening. Are you really worried that Crescent and Io are going to become the best character in Marvel Future Fight? That's really not going to happen. These needless, I mean, it almost seems like someone who doesn't play the game at all is making these changes. I really wonder where, like, can we get some developer notes? Can I really get the justification why her ignore dodge was reduced from 8 seconds to 4 seconds? I would be really curious to know why, because it doesn't really seem like it makes any sense at all to me. But anyways, for the most part, these are substantial buffs. Iframes, cooldown reduction, new buffs, you know, moving the guard hit from 2 seconds to 6 seconds. You still have some goofy stuff like 1 second immunity and 2 seconds of reflect on her 4th skill. You still have some weird stuff that's just like, it doesn't really make any sense why you're gonna give someone 1 second of immunity. But overall, I think this is a pretty big buff. However, I don't think it's good enough, especially with characters like Namor nowadays. And you know what? I'll be testing him later, but Swordmaster, I don't think this puts... I don't even know if this puts Crescent on the level of Luna Snow and Sharon before their uniforms. It sure as hell does not match. It sure as hell does not match Crescent up to Luna Snow and Sharon Rogers now with their current uniforms. So we're gonna have to wait and see how the testing goes. But that is the analysis that I have thus far. The last thing I want to say, this video has run a bit longer than I wanted it to, so we're actually not gonna get to the gameplay today. But the last thing I wanted to say was I realized Netmarble has a lot of typos or sort of mistakes on the character usage tips. It seems as though there are 2 different people working on the English translation for the skills on the skill wheel, and there's someone else working on the skills that they're copying and pasting and translating over here. It's either that or the skills went through multiple name changes in English and they haven't been updated. Because, for example, I'm going to hide my camera here for a second. On Io and Crescent's here, it says using Io Shockwave and using explosive flying kick. So explosive flying kick is actually explosive flying strike. And also, I can't find Io Shockwave. I think they're talking about Spirit Bear Shockwave, but that's not Io Shockwave. And this basically is the same for all new characters. Over here, we go and see that the Entice effect from Gentle Entice, it's called Tender Temptation. It's not called Gentle Entice. They call it Soul Snatcher. This one is correct. Nine-Tailed Fox. This one is correct. But there are mistakes on basically every single character. So I would really encourage Netmarble to proofread these things and fix them. They also need to fix the Dimension missions. And they also need to give us level 5 XP chips somewhere. They need to give us more Rift tokens. And Your Honor, I rest my case. So yeah, apologies for not getting to the gameplay for Whitefox and Crescent, but from the gameplay that I did do sort of practicing, they both seem quite a bit better. Crescent hits harder but has a lot more survivability, and Whitefox has both, damage and survivability as well. So I'll get to more gameplay in the future, guys, once the update lands and we can actually play it all together. I just wanted to give you guys a first preview here, and I also wanted to point things out to Netmarble. The last thing that I just saw from my notes here is that Io still takes damage for Crescent, but he takes less damage because of the iframes on 3 and 5. However, the heals from Crescent don't affect Io. So I think it would be a really cool thing thematically if Crescent's heal were to affect Io, or I think maybe Netmarble should just make Io non-targetable, because, you know, he's a spirit bear. He's not actually tangible. He's a spirit. You shouldn't be able to hit a spirit. You shouldn't be able to kill a spirit, frankly, but you can kill Io, and then it takes him 3 seconds to respawn, which is kind of weird. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of Crescent and Io. Subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you soon again. Take care.